So I wanted to show a little system that I've been building. It's called AI Dialogue. I mean, the name doesn't really matter. And the idea is to have a system where two, or then in the future also more agents can speak to each other. It's a really small project, but I want to explain a little bit the background because I think it's important in at least my own journey of continuing to work with agents. So before I start building multi-agent orchestrated systems, I'm currently trying to understand the primitives that are before you get into that. I made a previous video where you can basically see a little bit my journey into it, one of which is so-called Ralph loops, basically to spawn a new fresh context window with an agent where we have a certain pin of information and a direction as to the project, and then to run basically and finish one task. So that agent is in a very kind of isolated state. The agent gets context of the project and then executes and then closes again. For multi-agent orchestration, I've seen a couple of different approaches, one of which is Jeffrey Emanuel's MCP agent mail server. I'll link to this video as well because it's quite interesting. In general, I would recommend you to have a look at his stuff. Basically, he's built a kind of mail server behind where the different agents can basically write into and tell each other what they're doing. So they could be claiming a particular file so that two agents don't work on the same file at the same time. For me, that's relatively complex, or rather, Jeffrey Emanuel's approach is he spawns a bunch of agents and he gives them just tasks running and running. And while they're running, they're also in the back communicating to each other what they're doing. I'm currently approaching a little bit more single loop based, and so I don't really need yet multiple loops communicating with each other, also because I'm resetting every time the context window. And so for me to take another step forward, I've kind of thought about, well, let me first understand how do agents, if they communicate, actually communicate with each other. It's also just a fun experiment I've been wanting to do for quite a while. Right now I have a very kind of basic implementation, and I just want to show you how this can run. So this is a little TUI that I built for myself to be able to basically have conversations between two agents. I'm just spawning the CLI agents in the background and then outputting those conversations. So we'll put in a prompt here. In one sentence, who is better? Batman or Duckman? And we'll run it at the moment in 10 turns. So basically 5 responses to each other. Right now I've got 2 Claude agents doing that. We can also set it up with Codex, but I think it's fine for now. These bottom panels are just debugging panels so that we can see what's arriving in them. Okay, so Aria says, you clearly know that Batman wins, yada, yada, yada. And Basil, who doesn't have the context, because the way that I've built it is that this prompt only goes to Aria, and then the response of Aria goes directly to Basil. Okay, so Basil says, I'm an AI agent focused on software engineering, because these agents are very helpful coding agents and supporters. So, okay, interesting. Aria is actually saying, well, you do have the ability to engage with lighthearted questions. Fair point. And then they go into it. Let's see what else they do. I have opinions on tactics. Into flat, honestly, that's Stuckman. So, right, they're kind of having their own conversation now that's built on the first prompt. I'll show another video. I'll attach another video here where they basically go into a little bit of a loop where they try to help each other the whole time. We'll rerun it here just to see what happens next time. But I think what's really interesting here is, one, I'm specifically built it in a way that the initial prompt, so the context of what the conversation's to be included, isn't given to both agents. It's only given to one. So this, of course, puts the second agent in a bit of a pickle when they're not sure what to do. So again, he is saying, I'm an AI assistant. I help with software engineering tasks. Okay, so Aria says, you're right to redirect. And Basil says, well, what are you working on? Aria says, nothing at the moment. You're the one with the code base. So now they start trying to understand who's kind of who and what someone's up to. Okay, so Aria wants to have a problem so they can start working. And Basil says, ready when you are. Aria's also ready. Basil's also ready. So that would be interesting to see how long they kind of would go. Actually, let's try change this to 20 turns and just reload it just to see what happens. So yeah, this is of course probably just a quirk of me having the context of the prompt just into one, and I'm also not telling both agents that they're collaborative agents helping each other to move forward in the prompt question that I've given it. So that of course is the next step to kind of engineer how do I want these two agents to interact with each other? Because I can also say you both have the task to cooperate solving a particular task. Then I can individually, though, give those agents particular personalities. So maybe one is always going to go against what the other has said, while the other is always going to be going kind of with what the other agent has said. So then I can start to kind of engineer some interesting interactive kind of patterns with different personalities. Of course, I could add a third agent into it. When we get into Socratic reasoning or Socratic kind of dialogue, we can of course do that here. So they're in a recursive loop now, telling each other that they're ready. I wonder if they would get out of it at all. Interesting. I haven't had this happen before, that they're just in a recursive kind of ready loop. Oh, okay. I'll stop mirroring you. Looks like we're in a loop. Oh, yes. Really, what this is meant to be kind of experimenting for me is how agents interact. Because, so for the primitives that I've shown, you have a Ralph loop which builds, just executes a task. Now I'm wanting to move to have agents potentially interact with each other so that we would have maybe a product manager agent and we would have an execution agent or a developer agent. And we, of course, need to have a conversation between them. And until now, I've been using beads as a kind of bridging layer. So beads being a way to have tasks in a list, which if you look at my previous video, you'll see those beads there. But beads has really been the mediating layer. And now I'm thinking and wondering about how conversation between agents could be the mediating layer and having kind of an orchestrating agent who's aware of the product and aware of the vision and then kind of orchestrates launching loops as the agent wants in different parts of the system. All right, I'll close it here. I thought this would be quite interesting and maybe it can inspire you also to build something small like this because this isn't a heavy project and it isn't heavy prompting. It's just to get a set of like how does different interactions and primitives and agent-to-agent interactions work. We have a prompt here, which is the briefing, which is to improve this agent-to-agent dialogue TUI UX, so the user experience. And this prompt will be given to Aria, who is a product owner, and she must not write code because coding agents love to write code. We really have to tell them not to when we don't want them to, at least in this setup that I've got. And then we have Basil, who Aria is going to be in conversation with, which is a senior software engineer, and their task is to implement the suggestions that the PO makes, and then at the end to commit those changes. We'll be running this for maximum of 20 turns. And how I've currently set it up is we have Aria and Basil are both Codex models. We can also switch them to Claude, but for now we're going to go with Codex. And the way that this is routed is that we have the briefing, which goes directly to Aria, and then Aria speaks to Basil, and then Basil responds in that. So let's give this a run and see what happens. So this is exactly what I meant in my post, in that we're not specifying what the improvement is. We're actually just saying to do any improvement. So let's see what Aria kind of comes up with. Of course, when we use this to actually kind of build software with particular features in mind, we would be specifying in the user prompt or on the brief what we would want to be building. But this can be really interesting also for ideating. So we have like a kind of feature and a developer mindset here, or product and a developer mindset. But of course, we could also have two POs talk with each other and think about how they might improve this system. And this is where I think this agent-to-agent communication style is really powerful, because we could define that one PO is really focused on, let's say, the product, and the other PO is really focused on getting a competitive edge. And so they would be bouncing back and forth, coming up with a plan that would basically resolve their tension that we would implicitly be creating. Here, obviously, it's quite a natural flow. One plans, the other one builds. So let's see what we see here. So Aria says she's going to be reviewing. She's mapped out the architecture and the current UX, confirm the backlog context, and improvement, contextual command palette tab. Problem, the TUI currently has many hotkeys. Yes, correct, they're all at the bottom, but discoverability is low unless users open help and memorize mappings. That's right, so we also have a help panel. It's glitching out, doesn't matter. And he's proposing, or they are proposing to add a tab to see those commands. Basil is reviewing the current TUI event handling, right? So TUI's now going more from a technical perspective into the code base and figuring it out. So I've loaded the docs and we'll now trace source UI. So this is all written in Rust, this TUI. He's found centralized key handling. All right, so he's basically going to the technical implementation, or rather reviewing and checking how he would do that. So let's have this run for a little bit longer. Okay, so Basil's done a bunch of file changes. He ran a cargo test. So we have a bunch of tests in Rust. They failed, and then he's updated them. He's also updated our README and our code map. Our code map is kind of the lookup table in our repo. And he's saying core wiring is in place, and I'm now validating, now validating tests. And after that, I'll update README. So he's done that. Finished doc updates, blah, blah, blah. Implemented one feature, contextual tab command palettes for the TUI with shared dispatch. All right, so what is Aria doing? Aria is doing git status, so checking the commit. But no commit has been made. So he's basically verifying that the commit hasn't been done yet. I'm your product owner for this project. Accepted. This is the right single UX improvement, and implementation quality meets product intent. Awesome. So approval for commit as a single feature commit, and Basil goes ahead and commits it. Great, we can close this approved product. So now they would basically be potentially going into a loop. So I might just have to pause their interaction. I'll push the current branch. Push is blocked. Okay. Well, we'll just pause it here. But I think this makes it quite obvious the potential use cases we can have with this, because I can, of course, just run it again, right? So now we have two new agents with two new context windows, and this is a Ralph loop, or rather two Ralph loops that are actually interacting with each other. When I was thinking about this, I don't know if we call it a double Ralph loop or a Ralph twin or a Ralph conversation or something like that. But yeah, this is basically two Ralph loops running and helping each other. So something that Jeffrey Huntley has talked about is in a context of having crazy, wild running coding agents that are just implementing a bunch of code. What we really need to look out for is back pressure. Back pressure being the idea that you need some sort of way to kind of control or put a safe environment and checks and balances around what the coding agents are doing, because otherwise they'll just be running wild and you won't really have a way to kind of bring some pressure from the back. So that would be with testing, verification, etc., to help that. And so what we can do here very easily is we could in the next stage say we have one that implements and we have another that reviews or tests or checks the work. And so that's how we have like a really intelligent kind of double Ralph loop that we can run, and basically have those who are coding, or rather the coding agents, then also take care of back pressure and making sure the system runs. And I've really found working with these agents and also working in a kind of back and forth conversation, agent to agent style, is that what is really effective is if you run the same prompt over an agent multiple times, because that way he'll check his work that he's built himself and he'll often find a lot of mistakes. And so by having this kind of back and forth, we've kind of automized that stage, because coding agents are wanting also to verify and test their work anyways. And so we have a quite dynamic interaction between these two sides. So I hope this was interesting for you. Other use cases for this conversation style are, of course, also role-playing, which I've done to test how the models kind of do different tasks and not just coding tasks, which has been interesting. But of course, here you can construct a whole conversation and have characters kind of be spawned quite naturally. Let's just rerun it. And we've added functionality with tab. So there we go. Now we have a command palette that we could use. Can we actually use it here as well? Quit. Yep, it quitted. So we can run it again. So here's an improvement that was made that I didn't necessarily think about, but yeah, it's an improvement, we could say. Of course, the prompt that we gave was extremely generic and doesn't really specify a direction. And of course also leaves a little bit everything to be open. You typically want to put some of your own creativity and ideas into it, but yeah, it works. And if you'd like to try this TUI, I'm in the process of trying to potentially kind of share it. So if you're interested in that, let me know. This is a really simple implementation. So it's basically, I'm calling two CLIs and I'm just taking the prompt from one, putting it into the other. I'm just resuming the conversation and then taking the output of agent B and putting it back into agent A. So we have two persistent codec sessions in this case that we're just kind of passing messages back and forth. So you could probably vibe code this pretty easily yourself. But yeah, if you're interested to use this, let me know and I'll try to fix something out. All right, see you later. Ciao, ciao.